Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. You might be wondering, who am I talking about? Who is this divine creation? Who is this divine marvel? Who is this child of God? I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you. Yeah, you. Hello, and thank you so much for dropping by this video and this channel. My name is Arthur. For anyone who's new to this channel is dedicated to the teachings of a very beautiful soul named Bruno Groening. And in essence, how I would sum up his teachings is that he taught the teachings of Christ, not the religion that was created after Christ left, but the path of Christ, of following God and understanding that God was all good and only good, that God truly is love, and aligning ourselves with that love, being guided by that love, trusting in that love, in that power as well. This understanding that God isn't just a reality that's far away, but is closer than close, actually lives within us, and the infinite, limitless power of God didn't just kind of create the world and now is just doing nothing, but is actively available to help us in every aspect of our lives, in every aspect of our life journey, of our spiritual journey. That's just maybe a little summation for anyone who's new. So I had the audacity to name tonight's talk The Meaning of Life, as if I can sit here in front of my computer and tell you exactly what the meaning of life is. I wish I could, but I can't because I'm not a master. I'm not spiritually enlightened or perfected. I believe only someone who has attained that high state is really qualified to say, this is the meaning of life. So, but what I can do is I can make references to some beings who I consider to be masters and what they said the meaning of life was, and what they said life was all about. And of course, specifically, I'm going to focus on Bruno Groening. So first and foremost, Bruno pointed out that life is a school, that we're here to learn. And some of those lessons are going to be very unique to each person. Some of those lessons are universal, that we're all here to learn. The one that really speaks to me today is the quest for peace. I'm not talking about peace in the world, though that would be a result of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about peace within ourselves. And not just contentment or, feeling okay, but Bruno Groening spoke about a divine heavenly peace. And of himself, Bruno said, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's almost the exact words, that he didn't give that peace up for anything. Now, he had a very difficult life. I sometimes feel envious of Bruno Groening, like, oh, it'd be so amazing to have such a connection to God, and so amazing to be able to discern God's will so clearly, and so amazing to be able to help so many people. And I think that would be amazing. And Bruno spoke sometimes about his spiritual eye and how much he could see. He once said something along the effects of, when your spiritual eye is fully opened and you're, for example, walking down the street, you can see everything that was in that street. He gave an example of he was walking down the street, or riding his bike actually, and he was with one of his children actually, whose spiritual eye was also open. And Bruno said to his child, or I can't remember whether the child said to Bruno or Bruno said to the child, do you see that temple that was there 4,000 years ago? Like, they're just riding down the street, but like they can see everything. And that sounds amazing. Like, sign me up for that. However, let's keep in mind how challenging Bruno Groening's life was. He was under constant, once he became public with his work, he was under constant attack from thousands, if not tens of thousands of people, externally, and I'm sure energetically. In fact, he spoke of how he was under attack energetically from these people, much less the level of attack he was under from evil. He was very adamant that evil is very real and tries to pull all of us off the good path. Well, how much more so was it working to pull Bruno Groening off the good path? And he once said, "No one can understand the temptation I have faced." What kind of temptation was that? Well, some of it, most of it, we probably don't know and won't know. But part of it he gave a hint of. During an interview, someone asked him, "Have you ever used your power to harm people?" And Bruno said, "Absolutely no. I never have." And he said, "I'm actually proud of that." Now, if you sit with that, that means that Bruno had the free will to use his power to harm and potentially stop the people who were attacking him, but he didn't. Talk about resisting temptation. So, one of the lessons that I understand that we're all here to learn is how to be peaceful under all situations. And I can only say I understand because I haven't mastered that lesson yet. I've definitely made some progress, but nowhere near consider myself a master of that. I do have someone who is somewhere in between an acquaintance and a friend who I believe has more or less mastered that through spiritual means. He's just peaceful under all circumstances. And this person has been through the ringer, very challenging things. And through intense devotion and through deep spiritual practice, he's literally at peace all the time. And not just like, oh, I'm thinking positive thoughts. Like, no, he's in a state of consciousness where external things, they just don't bother him. And as I said, he's faced some very intense challenges and trials because it sounds humanly impossible, right? To be at peace always. And yet there are examples throughout history of great saints who have done it. And I've had the good pleasure, and the person I just mentioned is one, I've had the good pleasure to meet a few people who aren't necessarily saints in the way we think of saints. Like they're not out there like doing big things or teaching the masses, but they're able to stay at peace under pretty much all circumstances. And it's very interesting to interact with them because on the one hand, they're very human. I haven't met a lot of such people, but I have met a few. And on the one hand, it's like they're the best of what it is to be human. They're kind, they're wise, they're patient, they're honest. But there is this sense you can just tell that they're very different from most human beings because they're completely settled in themselves. They don't grasp towards things because they found something inside themselves and they feel complete and whole. Now, I've certainly had moments of that, and I hope everyone, I'm sure, I hope, and I assume everyone here has had moments of that deep stillness where you feel completely at peace. Maybe when we're tuning in through prayer, meditation, maybe in nature, maybe when doing something creative. But for most of us who aren't masters of life, like Bruno Groening, or the people who I've talked about who have attained a very high spiritual state, for most of us, that peace comes and goes. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for me because the peace is so sweet. It's so good to just feel completely at peace, content. And Bruno Groening pointed out that life is a school. We're here to learn that. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just take a 3-week course, how to have divine peace 24/7 and be done with it? But I think that's maybe a very modern and maybe a very Western point of view. Maybe probably more modern, the fast food approach to spirituality. Whereas Bruno Groening said, this one life, while very precious and very important, is just a small part of a vast spiritual journey, which connects to another important thing to learn. And when I say learn, it's not like, we just take in information. That's part of it, but practice and strive. Bruno said, if you want to experience the divine, you must strive for it. Bruno didn't use the word must very often. He didn't speak in dogmatic absolutes. A few of them. God is goodness. If you want to experience God, you must strive. You must separate yourself from evil. And so in terms of this process that we're all on of learning how to be at peace always, faith comes in really handy. Because let's face it, we all face bumps. It's 7 p.m. here, and I've been up since about, 6:30 a.m. I've had many bumps happen today. Today, mostly just small bumps. But how we face the bumps and challenges is really of the utmost importance. If you listen to a motivational speaker and someone who talks about success in the business world, you'll often hear them say that one of the most important things that determines whether someone is successful or not is how they deal with failure, how they deal with setbacks. And I think that's true in the spiritual world as well, is how we respond when things don't go our way, how we respond when we face huge challenges. Because as I've said many times, it's very easy to have faith when everything is going our way, when everything is flowing, when we're feeling connected to God, when healings are happening, when we're getting clear guidance, when people are being nice to us, when our plans are just working out. That's when it's easy to have faith. But Bruno Groening pointed out that the state of the world is steered by God. And he said, only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. There's one more absolute. That if something bad happens, it's only happening to serve as a lesson. Because Bruno said God never punishes. So to maintain faith, even amidst the challenges, that, from my point of view, that's where the rubber meets the road. And in my experience, that takes me a huge step forward towards peace. Because if the peace I experience is dependent on external circumstances, I'm in big trouble. Because external circumstances are not a reliable source of peace. Bruno Groening's life is a testament to that. Bruno said, I've never let go of the divine heavenly peace. But Bruno Groening had a very hard life, very hard. And I just talked about when he was, older and active, when he was a child, he was made fun of. His family was very cruel to him, and he was very misunderstood. He was very misunderstood, and he had a very severe illness as a child. He almost died. Yet he clung to God, and he clung to faith. I look to him as my role model for faith. That sets the standard pretty high. So it's important for me to be gentle with myself and keep in mind that, Bruno Groening has a triple PhD, and on my good days, I'm in like 6th grade. On my good days. I don't know, maybe on my good days, I'm a high school senior. On my really good days, compared to Bruno Groening. On my bad days, I'm not even in preschool. All right, I'm going to take a look at the comments. Steph Nikki, hi, dear Steph Nikki. Chris, hi, my dear friend, wishing you a very happy new year. Thank you. The same to both of you. Thank you for saying hello. So, according to Bruno Groening, Christmas isn't over. Bruno Groening said that the entire month of December and the first week of January is the most sacred time of the year. I'm going to check something real quick. Please bear with me. So we've all heard the song, The 12 Days of Christmas, right? I mean, 5 golden hens. Well, I never knew what it was about until I found the teachings of Bruno Groening. I learned all sorts of things from Bruno Groening. So he explained that the entire month of December is a very sacred time. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said the gates of heaven open up and so much grace is showered down. But it doesn't stop with Christmas. And he says Christmas Eve is the holiest of nights. But it doesn't stop with Christmas Day. According to Bruno Groening, and this is not an idea that he made up, it's an idea that Christians have been celebrating for a long time, though it's been forgotten by most modern Christians, is that Christmas begins a 12-day festival. And it ends on January 6th. And Bruno Groening made reference to this. So to anyone who's curious, you can read up a little more about it. Or you can also just set aside some extra time. So we've got 8 more days of the Christmas season left to really tune in, to open our hearts to God, to Christ, if you feel comfortable. When I first met Bruno Groening, if you said the word Jesus or Christ, I would have probably said, keep that away, because I was raised in a very, I won't say cult-like, but a very conservative Christian background, which I left behind me. But Bruno Groening opened me to a spiritual understanding of Jesus, and to really separate Christ from the religion and seek to have my own understanding of Christ. And Bruno gave so many beautiful, simple pointers about who Jesus was. He said things like that he was the supreme spiritual healer and humanity's greatest friend. I've made many videos about this. You can search on the channel to learn more about that. From Sean, hey Sean, long time no. Happy New Year's, Arthur and everyone. Thanks for this channel and all it offers. I really appreciate that. And thank you all for showing up. You know, if there's only one it only takes one. If one person dropped by this channel, I would keep doing it. But the more people who come, the more it inspires me. So I thank all of you so much. So let's close with a little tuning in. Maybe I'll have a few more words, maybe not, we'll see. I'd like to thank everyone for joining in. Steph, Nikki, Chris, and Sean, thank you for saying hello. You know, from a spiritual point of view, God is always available, always with us. And my understanding is, and part of this comes from Bruno's teaching around Christmas, there's certain times, places where it's easier to receive the signal, to use some of the language Bruno talked about, this experience of connection to God. So I wish everyone a good rest of the Christmas season. Let's see. So today would be 25, 30. So today, if I'm counting correctly, is the 6th day of Christmas. So merry 6th day of Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Take care. Big love.